When people talk about Jay-Z's inner circle, one name quietly carries more weight than most: Emory Vegas Jones. Some people recognize Emory Jones today because of his Puma deal, his bet on yourself philosophy, or the paper planes logo you see everywhere in streetwear culture. Others know him as a senior figure inside Roc Nation, especially when it comes to apparel, branding, and culture. But long before Emory Jones was sitting in boardrooms and closing global brand deals, he was living a very different life, one that nearly ended behind bars forever. This is the story of how Emory Jones went from the streets to federal prison, and then to becoming one of the most trusted men around Jay-Z. Emory Jones didn't meet Jay-Z later in life. They grew up together, same environment, same pressures, same temptations. Both came from communities where hustling wasn't just common, it was normalized. Opportunity was limited, and survival came first. For young men like Emory and Jay, the streets weren't a phase, they were a system. And like many young men from that era, Emory Jones became involved in drug distribution, eventually operating on Maryland's Eastern Shore. This wasn't small-time activity. Federal authorities would later describe it as a large crack cocaine operation. And Emory's name would appear in a wide-ranging conspiracy case that also included another Jay-Z associate, DeHaven. In the late 1990s, federal prosecutors brought sweeping conspiracy charges against several individuals they claimed were part of a single massive drug enterprise operating on Maryland's Eastern Shore, primarily in Cambridge. Emory Jones was indicted in 1997. The indictment was sealed while investigators continued building their case. Over time, more defendants were added. Prosecutors argued this was one large conspiracy. Defense attorneys argued something very different, that there were multiple, separate drug operations, not one unified organization. This distinction mattered a lot because conspiracy laws allow prosecutors to introduce evidence that wouldn't normally be allowed in standard criminal cases. It gives them enormous power. What happened next was unusual. U.S. District Chief Judge J. Frederick Motz reviewed the case before it even went to the jury and ruled that the government failed to prove a single conspiracy, as charged. He acknowledged there was evidence of drug dealing. He acknowledged there may have been two separate conspiracies, but the government didn't prove what it accused. Judge Motz called the prosecution inherently unfair. He said something that shook the courtroom. It is far more important that the rule of law be upheld, even if the price is that people engaged in drug dealing go free. That ruling led to acquittals for several defendants, including DeHaven. Defense attorneys applauded the decision. Prosecutors were furious, but Emory Jones wasn't among the acquitted. Emory Jones pleaded guilty to cocaine trafficking and in January 2002 was sentenced to nearly 16 years in federal prison. This was real time, federal time, no parole. For many people, that would have been the end of the story. But for Emory Jones, it became the turning point. Throughout Emory's incarceration, Jay-Z consistently referenced him in his music, not subtly, directly. In one song, Jay opens with a collect call from Emory in prison, calling himself the Eyes for Emory and counting down the days until his release. Jay-Z didn't just talk about him in lyrics, he backed it up in real life. When sentencing laws around crack cocaine changed after a Supreme Court decision, Emory Jones filed a motion for sentence reduction. Included in that motion was a personal letter from Jay-Z. In the letter, Jay-Z explained that he had known Emory for over 15 years and described him as intelligent, disciplined, honest, and reliable. Jay stated plainly that Emory would be a valuable asset to his organization and that he had a $50,000 executive assistant position waiting for him at Roc-A-Fella Group. That letter mattered. The judge granted Emory's motion and reduced his sentence by 37 months. In April, Emory Jones was released from federal prison in Otisville, New York. According to reports, Jay-Z's Maybach was waiting outside the prison gates. That image alone tells you everything about loyalty. After his release, Emory spent 6 months in a halfway house before officially completing his federal custody. His probation would later end, fully closing that chapter of his life. But Emory didn't come home chasing clout. He came home focused. He began building a new legacy. After prison, Emory Jones didn't try to become a rapper. He didn't write a tell-all book. He didn't play the victim. He went to work. Inside Roc Nation, Emory became deeply involved in apparel, branding, and culture strategy. He played a key role in shaping the paper plane's logo, one of the most recognizable symbols in modern streetwear. He partnered with Lids to release exclusive hats. Later, he helped launch the Emory Jones collection in partnership with Puma, officially stepping into the global fashion space. His personal philosophy became simple but powerful. Bet on yourself. And unlike motivational slogans, Emory lived it. People are tired of hearing only about jail and death. Emory Jones represents something different: redemption without excuses. He doesn't deny his past. He doesn't glorify it. He acknowledges it and then shows what's possible on the other side of discipline, patience, and loyalty. That's why people respect him. That's why the culture embraces him. And that's why Jay-Z continues to stand beside him. Emory Jones's life proves something important. Your past doesn't disqualify you, but it does test you. He paid his debt. He stayed solid. He didn't fold. And when the door finally opened, he walked through it prepared. From Eastern Shore drug cases to Roc Nation executive offices, Emory Jones didn't just survive, he rebuilt. And that's a story worth telling. What makes Emory Jones's journey powerful isn't just that he came home, it's how he came home. A lot of people get released from prison and still carry the same mindset that got them locked up. Emory didn't. He understood something early. Freedom without direction is just another trap. Instead of chasing attention, he focused on structure. Instead of bragging about the past, he invested in the future. And instead of trying to prove himself to the streets, he proved his value in rooms that actually mattered. That's why his transition worked. Emory Jones didn't just change environments, he changed identity. Another major lesson from Emory's story is the power of loyalty, but also timing. Jay-Z didn't save Emory by magic. Emory had already done the work on himself. He stayed disciplined while locked up. He didn't create extra problems. He didn't burn bridges. So when the opportunity came, he was ready. That's an important detail people overlook. Connections can open doors, but character determines whether you stay inside. Emory Jones didn't waste his second chance. Emory Jones went from street cred to corporate cred. The streets respect toughness. Business respects consistency. Emory learned how to transfer the same traits that helped him survive the streets: focus, awareness, discipline, into the corporate world. That's how he went from inmate number to Roc Nation executive. That's how he became a key figure in fashion, branding, and culture. And that's why major companies like Puma trusted him with their name. He didn't just represent a brand, he represented a comeback. Why true crime needs stories like this. True crime is full of endings that feel heavy. Prison, death, betrayal, loss. Emory Jones's story matters because it shows a rare third outcome: accountability, survival, and growth. It doesn't excuse crime. It doesn't glamorize the streets. It shows what happens after the consequences when someone decides to live differently. That's real. Not everyone gets a second chance. And not everyone who gets one uses it wisely. Emory Jones did. And that's why his story deserves to be told. If you made it this far, hit the like button. It really helps push this story to more people. Drop a comment below and tell me what you think. Was Emory Jones's comeback more about loyalty or personal growth? And if you want more real true crime stories, real street history, and real life redemption arcs, watch the video below and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next one. More truth, more depth, no filters.